guest today is Melissa Henry. Melissa Henry is founder of Personal Brandtography, and she supports women coaches and consultants to get more visible and become known as the expert in their space. Specifically, Melissa helps her clients strategically clarify and showcase their personal brands, making their marketing way more effective so they can have a bigger impact and grow their business to multiple 6 and 7 figures. Welcome, Melissa Henry. Welcome to BrandsTalk.
Thank you so much, Brigida. I'm so happy to be here, and I really appreciate you asking me to be on the show. I love it.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. And I can't wait to get it going, to kicking off our conversation all around personal branding and brand photography. So you have 13 years in brand photography and also 5 years in
Mhm.
studying in strategy. So can you tell us a little bit about your personal brand story and where you are at right now and how you got there, first of all?
Sure, that's a big question. Um, so I started off, this was, years ago, approximately 13 years ago. I had, I'd been I had been in the space of, I was a CPA. I don't know if you know that, which is a certified public accountant. So I was doing that for many years, but on the side, I was, doing photography just for fun. And then I just kind of got to the point where I was like, I do not know why I'm still doing this work because I don't enjoy it. I never have really truly enjoyed it. So I decided to just throw myself into photography and I built a business on the side. I think a lot of people have done that with, doing the side hustle, that kind of thing. So I built this business on the side and I was photographing women and babies, so moms to be and newborn babies. And I did that for a long time, kind of telling myself that one day I would go full time in my business. But that one day kept going, like, farther and farther away because of all of the excuses we put in our path, right? Until the day that I was put on a project on a client site where it was a toxic work environment, not because of my company, but because of the client. And it was, I mean, like late nights being yelled at, all of the things that I just got to a point. I only lasted 6 months there. Honestly, like I thought I might end up in the hospital if I don't leave this place, but I finally said, "All right, enough is enough. Let me just start this business full time. Let me just do this thing." At the same time, I realized that I wasn't inspired anymore working with the maternity and newborn, niche. And I came across this personal brand thing and I was like, "Wait a minute. Like this was something I used to do before I decided to do moms and babies. I was photographing, business owners in my local market. And I was saying, "Oh, you should use this. I show people what you're like and what it feels like to work with you and all the things." But at that time, people really weren't using social media the way they are today. And so there wasn't really a big use for having that library of imagery, to put out on social media and on their newsletters and things like that. They just didn't do that. So suddenly I was like seeing this thing. I was like, holy smokes. Like, this is something I love doing. Let me go do that thing. Right. So I kind of just like immersed myself in that. I found my way around, like bumping and scratching and figuring it out like we typically do when we start, right? And then I enrolled in a program with a company called Brand Builders Group, which was a self-paced study program. So I did that for about a year. And then about a couple of years later, I also worked with a different company called Branding for the People and created my personal brandtography brand from that. So I've been through all of that. During the course of photographing my clients for their personal brands, and by the way, you know how this is. It morphs like, or it's kind of like together. Like your personal brand and your business brand, they do this at some point, right? Right. So I was photographing their business. I was photographing them. I was doing the whole thing. And then one of my clients came to me and he said, "Melissa, I really need you to coach me on this brand thing. I need to understand it better. I need to know how to implement it." And I was like, "Okay." So I went through the imposter syndrome thing where I was like, "Wait a minute, am I really qualified to do this?" But I sat down with him. We started the work. And lo and behold, he was like, "This is incredible. I've never thought about it this way." And then he told me after a little bit of time working together, he said it used to take us about ten outreach, like cold outreach calls to get one client. He said, now because we know who we're looking for, we know exactly the psyche, we know where to find them, we know what to say to them. He's like, it's down to 3 to 1. I was like, are you kidding me? That's incredible. So this stuff works, right? So that's kind of how I maneuvered my way and got to here. But ever since then, like that's what I've been doing. So I'm doing the photography. Yes, absolutely. That's the expression of your brand, but I'm also doing the work with them to develop that brand underneath the foundation. And I think people who are listening to you understand that this isn't a logo and this isn't graphics or any of that or what your website looks like. That's the expression piece of it. But you got to know the underlying
Yeah.
stuff,
It's
right?
really interesting because when I ask my clients, when you think of branding, what comes up first? And it's always, it's the name, it's the logo, but there is so much more. And it really starts with the mindset. And for you, it was like you had this magic moment, this epiphany, right? You were unhappy. You were really like, okay, what's going on? Where is my purpose in this life? So you find it.
Mhm.
Are these magic moments where the right client comes in, the right people that support you, and then boom, it's there. And you also said, yeah,
Yeah.
having an imposture, it's about your mindset. You have to switch that first. And then, as you say, you go through this journey, everything morphs into. So you have the personal brand that morphs then into your company brand. You tie it into your company brand. And only then you're coming up with your, I always call it the brand elements. Yeah, how you express your brand with your name, with your logo, with your colors. So it's really, it comes in stages and it evolves and it just takes time.
It does. It does. And, having been through that process too of coming up with the colors and coming up with the logo and things like that, um, I remember that process well. And I remembered, my God, if I didn't know like I hadn't done the work, I would have ended up in a completely different place, unhappy with it, wouldn't have jived, all the things. So, like, I think if people understand, like, why am I going to take that time? We tease this out as being like, you got to slow down to speed up, right? I am not saying stop everything. What I'm saying is you need to spend the time with somebody who can see you objectively, right? Unbiased objectively and and scope that out and get super deep into it. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing the networking and all the things. What you're going to start to find out is when your mind is your subconscious is working on this stuff, next thing you know, you're having conversations that are different. You're meeting different kinds of people who are like they get what you're saying. It seeps in to your language. So that's why it's worth it. It's not just because you need to go get yourself a logo, so you need to do it. No. Like this brand stuff, it underlies everything in your business.
It's
Everything.
systemic. It's systemic in a sense because if you change, your language around you changes and the people around you change as well. So it's really about what
Mhm.
people are you hanging out with? Whom are you surrounding yourself with? And another thing you mentioned, because it takes also the time, you can't take these shortcuts of brand building. I always say that because there are these steps that you have to take in order to become a successful, strong, iconic, distinguished, unique brand out there in the marketplace. There is no other
Yeah.
way going that steps because if you're not, you start all over again, you know?
Right. Yeah, and it's a journey too. Like, I don't want people to think that, like, okay, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna carve out, a couple months to work with somebody, get this thing under control, and then I can just let it go. I can just like ride and I'm good. It totally changes. And the cool thing about that is when you have that initial direction, like you've done that work, you got the initial direction. Now, when opportunities come your way, you can look at them somewhat objectively and go, is that in alignment with the big vision? Like, does that support the kinds of people I want to work with? If not, no, thank you. If yes, then you go into it more. And maybe the other piece of that too is you can also look at it and say, well, actually, that's a different vision, but I like it.
Yes.
And guess what? I've built an audience of people who like me for who I am. and what uniquenesses I have, they're going to trust me that my opinion about that thing for them is good. And so I think I want to say there too is make sure that you're being authentic. Don't be something or someone you're not, right? And take this brand thing very seriously about like how am I really going to support my audience? Do I really care about them or is this just another way for me to make money? Cuz there's plenty of brands out there that do that, but ultimately at some point that falls flat. I've seen it happen over and over again. So,
Absolutely.
I don't know, there's a little PSA for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you only can be authentic when you know who you are, because otherwise you can't be really authentic. You have to really understand who you are, what
Mm.
values you are living by. And then once you know
Right,
that, know also whom you gotta appeal to. And you also, as you mentioned,
right.
have to have this vision, you have to have a goal, but at the same time, knowing where you are because you also want to be strategic. And when you're strategic, you know who is going to be your customer, who is, yes, you're welcome, or no, I'm sorry, there's someone out there who serves you in the way
Yes,
you need to be served. Yeah, it might be a different way,
absolutely.
that not the way of how I do it. So we can be, when we focus, we can create much more value for a person. And also the person is really the one we can feel into, and step
Oh,
in,
yeah.
just walk their talk and really understand, because then we can serve them.
For sure, and, I'm gonna be a little vulnerable here and tell you a real situation. So, I actually currently have a client who, when we met, I thought, "This is great." She was very, like, ready to go, and then now there's been, like, some holdup and some, like, not quite committing to certain things and stuff like that. So, what's interesting about that is I could go one way. I could say, you know, I could say, like, that's her, and that's just not a good client," or whatever. But what I'm taking from it is I'm going back to my brand. I'm looking at the psychographics for the person I wanna work with, and then I get to be really real with myself and say, "Did I vet this particular client out enough to know whether or not we would work well together?" And the answer is no. We just signed on the dotted line pretty quickly and we kinda moved forward, but now there's a lot of, like, give and take. So, not to say that I'm gonna make myself wrong for that, but what I'm saying is that makes it very objective for you, right? I can take my emotion out of it, which I do. I'm practicing that more and more every day. But, you take your emotion out of it and go, "Oh, well, but you knew what that was. Did you spend enough time digging there to figure out whether this was gonna work?" I will say that we're gonna continue to move forward, and I expect and hope that things will be more smooth as we move forward and as she gains more trust in me because there could be a trust issue there. But I think that's something for people to know. It's like, figure this out and then set the expectation for someone
Yeah.
ahead of time before you start working with them and set that based upon all of this interaction that you have initially with them.
Exactly. And also because you said you're vulnerable with it, because on the way you felt like there is something off right now, because
Yeah,
you have a conversation about it. Yeah. Openly talk about it, because usually you
absolutely.
solve the problem by doing so, and you stay on
Yeah.
brand. Because if you're not, then you're not authentic anymore, and you cannot
Mm.
be at your best and serving in your best version. It's not possible. So I think
Right.
open conversation is a way of, okay, do we still continue going forward? Maybe in foster a stronger relationship, even so. You never know.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, and thank you for that because that is indeed what I was thinking of. It's like we need to have a little bit more of a heart to heart on this thing because you and I are gonna be, like, close, you know, people like, we're gonna be doing things very closely and working together. We gotta have that trust.
Yeah. And it's not about us being the hero here, not showing our
Mm-mm.
ability, even though you are the one who is helping a client. So you are the guide, and you can be open and you say, I feel here is something is not quite, we have to talk about that. I think that is a real leader. That is someone who is really open to embrace and go
Mhm.
such a conversation. I think it's very bold, courageous, and it's the only way to go forward in a good way. I'd say it like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how you tied that to the brand, right? Like, what is ask yourself, is this do I embody that type of leadership, right? Like you have to be getting super real with those values. What's a non-negotiable, right? I
Exactly.
don't think people think about it that way.
Yeah.
And you got to.
Yeah, and it's important to know that upfront. But once you are in
Mhm.
a relationship with your client, maybe you have a contract over a year, a retainer over a year, but you also
Mhm.
evolve, you change over time. There is life coming into, things are
Yeah.
changing. So you are changing and the relationship might change. So once in a while, we should reflect and see where are we right now with our relationship, with our work, or yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I love.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your clients. I would like to know your
Mhm.
perspective on things because you're supporting women, coaches, and consultants to get more visible and become known as the experts in their space. So, what is usually missing for coaches and consultants when they begin to market their business? Where are they at on their journey? What struggles do they have? And how do you
Mhm.
support them? How do you help them turn their pain points into gain points?
Mhm. I like that. Pain points into gain points. Very well said. So I think there's a lot of things that kind of come up there, but I'm gonna just thinking in terms of some of my current clients. One of the things I think is super interesting is when people get started with being, let's say it's a life coach or a business coach, they're starting to go out to market with this idea that, well, I'm going to help women,
Mhm.
or I'm going to help entrepreneurs or whatever. And and when you do that, and this is so common, I'm sure everyone's heard this, but like you are basically speaking to no one because you think you need to speak to everyone. So that's one. But I think what underlies that, and here's where I think people don't talk about this. Maybe you've seen this, I haven't yet. It's about vision. It's about your why. What drives you to start this business in the first place? I can remember back when I was starting when I was going into this niche and doing this full time, I had this moment where I was thinking, well, who's my ideal client? Like I've been photographing all these different people. Like who is this gonna be? So I looked at I looked at men and I said, well, I could support men. But then I said, do I want to? And and I'm gonna caveat all of this by saying I do have male clients, right? Psychographically, they fit that psychographic profile. When I speak to them, I feel it, I know it, that sort of thing. There are certain men that don't, and they're just not attracted to my brand. So that's how it kind of works. But my point being is when I figured it out, it was like, okay, so it's women business owners. But then I had to go further. And what I truly realized was there were several things. One, I had to know what my vision really was. So who did I really feel the most like kinship with? Maybe that's the way of putting it. Who did I really think needed me? I had to feel a need there. And it kind of started to get real like more narrow. It's like, you know what, coaches, there's so many coaches out there. And I know they're feeling that scarcity thing, like, "Oh my god, there's so many coaches, like, how the hell do I stand out here?" And that's the thing, it's like, okay, so then I knew for a fact they needed what I could give them, and then I started understanding too that a lot of them had, mm, this feeling of like, I don't really wanna be out there so much, like, should I really even, like, be posting this much? And people are gonna think I'm salesy, or, I don't know that like, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not whatever enough. Those enough feelings, And I said, "Man, that's coaches are the ones," because, like, I could go and say, "Oh, I'm gonna talk about dentists," or something like, whatever. Most dentists don't necessarily need to have a personal brand. They don't their marketing and their brand awareness is a bit different, very hyper local, things like that. They had to get out in their community and things like that, but they're not necessarily posting on, social media all of the time, right? So so it was kind of a combination of who needs me, what's my vision, who do I feel really like I feel something for them. I want them to feel confident, right? And so it was this vision idea. It was the showing them how amazing they are through photography. But I do think that when I've actually dealt like dive into some of my coaching clients and their brands, it's so interesting to me when they say they have a vision, but they are not able to express what it is.
Yeah.
They're very like, it's very small. Well, my vision is that I want 5 clients, every month, and I'm like, "But that's not a vision.
Who is
That's like a that's like a plan, a strategy, like a business strategy or something, like that's the beginnings of that or a goal, but that's not a vision." And so when we start to really, like, get into vision, holy cow, it's like their eyes light up and they go, "Oh, yeah, I'm so down with that." And I said, "Guess what? So am I, because it makes me feel something." Right? So that's the work I'm doing with them is getting to the feeling, getting to the like every time you're feeling down, maybe you have a bad day at work, in your business, you're feeling down, you're like, I don't know that what I'm doing is working. And you turn you look at that vision and you go, I gotta keep going because those people need me. Doesn't that
Yeah.
make you feel something?
Yeah. Yeah.
It does for me. And
Yeah. For me too.
that's what it is.
Yeah, it's the legacy we want.
That's what they're missing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so I wanna have a footprint in this world. I wanna leave something behind.
Right.
I see something that I
Yeah.
can provide and make a difference for the world with. So this is it. What keeps me going? It's like, come on, Bridget, get up now. It's
Get
time
up.
to move. No time for. I mean, we can
Yes.
spend, for a couple of hours, maybe a day or
Sure.
hell, it's time to get up and get going again. Fulfill your dreams and your vision, actually. Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
And
for sure, for sure. So,
uh,
um, I do it that's where the confidence comes from. So, I'll talk with my clients and then we're gonna get to we get to their vision, et cetera, and they're feeling that. And then when we have a photo shoot and I'm showing them because everything we're creating is in alignment with all this stuff that we're building together. So they're seeing these images, they're understanding why we're doing this particular image in this way, with this prop, with this background, with those people in it, etcetera. And they look at the images, I do, a tethered, shoot, so I have, all the images come up, full screen, and we can, like, talk through them and etcetera. But they'll see that and they'll go, "Wow, wow, I look really confident. That looks really good. I like it." And I'm like, "Yeah, see, this is what everyone else sees. You don't see it. You don't feel it. I wanna show you." That's like the thing. And I'm getting all emotional about it right now 'cause it's amazing to watch.
you're capturing
It's
the
incredible.
essence, right? What is in this person? You're
Right.
capturing the feeling in the visual, having them on a photo, and it's the person that you're seeing, but you'll see the feelings that you're capturing with your camera.
Yeah, and I think, like, if you have the right photographer who can do that, and I'm not just talking about a portrait, I'm talking about, like, really pulling out that expert feeling that like pulling out that confidence about what their purpose is, about what their vision is. When you start being able, like if you have someone like that's what I think is the power of brand photos
Yeah.
is you can't do this alone. You can't do this through selfies. You can't do this with your husband taking you know, that stuff's good, but I'm talking about the stuff that's truly pulling out that essence. Someone else has to do that for you. It's like surgery. You can't do this on yourself.
Mm. So
So
I
find someone local and do that knows this and do it.
actually, I think selfies. it's nice to show some, behind the scenes and something that you want to
Sure.
privately, but it's not of that quality and it doesn't translate into something that is high profile, very professional, who really gets the essence out of you and onto the photograph, right? So, and you say
Absolutely.
locally and so on, because you are in DC, you also have this
Yes.
hashtag DC photographer. And I mean,
Mhm.
way more than just taking the photo, right? I mean, it's the whole story around it and the feeling that is expressed here. And how do you serve someone who is, let's say, out of town, out of state, from another continent, maybe, and they say, wow, she's a
Right.
photographer. And so, how do you make sure that you can serve locally, but also via a certain distance? So, how do you multiply yourself in that sense?
That's a great question. So what I do is if someone is not local to me, and it kind of can be a couple of different ways, but if someone's not local to me, I can work with them to kind of help, first of all, help develop the brand. I know you do this as well, but through that process, a lot of times we can actually create a session plan for them that's pulling out, and actually every time. I've done this so many times, like, I know exactly how we do this, but they do have to have an understanding first. They have to have built something there. So whether or not it's been kind of over the course of time and them kind of figuring it out, or if they've worked with someone like you, to create that, they can come to me at that point and we can create together the session plan that includes all of the stories, all of the concepts that they talk about in social media, right? Concepts that are specific to their expertise, to their brand and things like that. We include things like, what kind of props do we need to bring into the equation? Who needs to be in the shoot with them? Because a lot of times it's about, how does how does this person make you feel when you work with them, right? You have to have that back and forth with those models in the shoot, right? And we're pulling together 2 other aspects. So it's like, well, what's the right location? And then we're creating actually a session flow that takes them through the entire day, right? So in this area, this is the story. Here's how we're going to pull out all these different, variety of images that serve multiple purposes, right? And so we're going to pull that through and we're going to make it happen throughout that day. So I've very successfully many times been able to create 75 images, so for that person in one day. And that's because of the way that we pull together that session plan. But it's very coordinated. Some photographers don't like to work this way. I'm just gonna put it out there, because some photographers are like, I just want to go out and I just want to do the thing. And I'm like, that's awesome, except that I want to make sure my clients get what they're looking for that's in alignment with their brand. When we get that, then we can play,
Yeah.
but not before we've accomplished this and really like given them that big variety. So at the end of the day, that's what I can do for people. I also have helped people find the right photographer where they live
Yeah.
to execute the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because I will look at their website, I will look at their galleries and things, and try to say, "Okay, well, I can see that they get this, like, the type of things that we shoot." I mean, if you look at my gallery, you can see what I'm talking about, but, like, we do need to actually do that work to figure out, well, who's gonna really be able to do this, and, of course, the photographer has to be open to that. Like, some photographers be like, "I can do this myself." That's cool, but I'm looking for photographers who are open to basically me bringing them a client, but being the one who executes the actual plan, and I've done that successfully, so
It's like with branding, a photo shoot is more than just the act of shooting photos. It's got a lot of
yep.
preparation time. It takes much more time. It's kind of a whole day, a whole journey that you're taking with your client to really get the essence out of it, out of the photos that you are creating. So that's beautiful. I like that. And also that
Thank you.
and multiplying yourself in working together with other brand
Mm,
photographers in other regions of the world.
mhm.
It's not a competition. And you're back there with
Oh,
comment on the post. Yeah, it's not about competition.
mhm.
really like cooperating together, because when you share, it actually becomes more, because that's something you can do from the place where you are, but there's someone else who can help you, and they also are with you in the business. Then, it's something, it's a co-creation
Yes.
together. And with
It's a co-creation. Thank you for saying that. Because I'm thinking of one time where I did this where, I found the right photographer who was open to this, and guess what? On set, on site, he came up with some great ideas because he's boots on the ground. He's seeing this. He's got a creative mind, and so he can take that, he can give the client what they're looking for, but he might have a different eye, a different creative outlook on it. I'm fine with that, 100%. Not everyone's going to shoot the way that I shoot. That's okay. I'm not, like I would even go out and tell you that I am not the best photographer out there in the world. I'm
Mhm.
not. I'm a very good one. I'm very technical. I know what I'm doing. But my eye, like I might not catch that cool little like angle that someone else might get. That's fine. Put yourself in there and do that thing. But like I said, have the plan. Execute that plan first and then do the play, because you're going to find that that's just going to provide so much value for your client. So and one really quick thing to say about that, you're right, it's a production. In fact, I just came off of a shoot last week where it was a whole team of people. It was for a financial services company. And what we did was we brought in models. We had the whole team there. We had like we shot in about, let's see, one, two, three, four, five locations within that day. It was all in the same place, but moving stuff around. I had two assistants. It was crazy. So, yeah, it's a production, but it's important because it's almost like if you thought about yourself as maybe a much smaller version of a big corporation, right? Like they spend tons of money on photo shoots and video and things like that, and they have an entire crew. We don't expect that for you, but we do expect that you have the right people there to support during the photo shoot. At least that I do, because I'm not going out there just by myself. Never, because I know I can't possibly think of all of the things that are gonna make this photo shoot go off great and also make my client feel good.
Yeah, it's a teamwork.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Teamwork.
Wow, interesting. I would like
Yeah.
back a little bit to why it makes sense to slow down in order to speed up. I think we did not go quite deep into it. Would you like to
Ah,
into that? Because I think
yeah.
it's also actually the topic we are here today, and I want to like
I know, right?
a little deeper. And what is your perspective on it when it comes to building our brain, our personal brain, tying it into the company brain? So why do we have
Mhm.
to go down? What's your stand on that?
Yeah, yeah, and again, I'm taking this from what I see. So if I see this with clients, I see this, just in general, networking meetings, when I go speak and things like that. Um, so what I see is a lot of times when we aren't taking that, like when we don't do the work, what happens? Well, have you ever opened your inbox and you see about 50 different emails about this tactic, that tactic? Hey, I just looked at your website and you're not getting the right, SEO. And hey, we can bring leads into your company. And hey, you don't have to do your own copywriting. I can do it. All of those things. Um, it's easy for us to just go, maybe that's the thing I have to do. It's not what I'm doing isn't working. Maybe that's the thing I have to do. And I've done it. I've done it. Like, I'll tell you a quick story, very
Yeah.
quick. Actually, this is like first year of business, and I wanted to go big and I wanted to do it fast, right? Because that's how we feel, right? We're so excited. I actually, and I didn't know that this was something you shouldn't do, but I paid someone to help me get into media, because he told me that that's the way you're going to blow up your business if you just have like get posted on these major mag. You do the same thing. Oh my god,
Yes, yes, yes.
right? No, I dropped. Now maybe it's not a lot of money now for most people, but I dropped $5,000 of money that I could have used in so many other ways that would have worked so much better. But because I didn't have an understanding, I was like, "Oh, yeah, let's just go ahead and do that." These magazines he's trying to get me into, first of all, it took forever for it to happen. He's promised 10 magazines in 10 weeks or something, and it was like 24 weeks or something with me hounding all the time. And then when I got in there, it wasn't what he promised. And of course, nothing came from it. And of course, those magazines have nothing to do with my right target audience. That's what I mean. We're going to like sit there if you don't stop for a second and just look at some of this stuff. You're going to be pulled in by all of those promises. And they're not going to be right for your business. They're not going to be right for you and for who you're trying to reach. So that's the slow down to speed up piece. Because once you do that, now you're like, okay, I don't have to be in 50 different places. I
No,
can just do
no.
these 2 things, it'll be done, right?
You cannot rush it. Again, it's not possible. You have
Yes.
to take one step after the other, build up your confidence. It's a trial and error. Okay, this is not my right target audience. Let's pivot. Let's look at that. Let's look, feel back into, inside yourself and ask yourself, what are you feeling? What is in there? And then
Mm,
it's really a trial and error. You have to go that path, and that becomes quality that
mhm.
you're building, and you can build upon a foundation that is rock solid and not just a quick win upwards to be everywhere right away. Yeah, I had
Yeah.
the problem with running Facebook ads, and then I don't want to go into this story, but I learned
Oh,
something
yeah.
I could have used otherwise.
Right. But and
I
again, not making ourselves wrong for that, right? But, like, learning
learning,
from it.
learning. It's a good
Yeah.
learning. I integrated it and I moved forward, but it took me a
Right.
while.
I know. You gotta feel the feels.
Yes.
Right?
Melissa, I want to switch gears a little bit because nowadays it's all about communities, right? It's the new way of how we are going to market ourselves, and something that is sustainable, something that bonds with others, build long-term relationships, right? And there is something, the Rockstar Coach Brand Club. Why should we care
Yes.
about it?
Why did you care about the Rockstar Coach Brand Club? So the Rockstar Coach Brand Club is my new show. It debuted this year, and what I'm doing is I realized, because again, going back to who I'm serving, right? I realized what coaches really need in order to get to this legacy business, to get to this place where they're actually really living their vision there, because there's so many of coaches out there that I think they're doing okay, but they still want more, and there's a feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that big purpose, right? So, I thought for a while and I was asking around, I was like, what do you really need?" And what I realized was there are about 4 different areas that kind of comprise what I would call a successful coach or consultant in their business, and that is they've got they understand their empire building strategies, right? That's right for them. So they got a strategy around empire building. I say empire building because it's bigger than us, right? And then they have a self-care routine that works for them with their unique specific circumstances. And self-care can mean a whole lot of things. So, I want to bring some of these interesting new different ideas to the table too. Mindset, huge. 95% of our success is mindset. The rest is all just, did we pick the right strategy, right? Because you can
Exactly.
go, I've heard it say that you could go on the corner and be like with one of those sandwich boards and advertise for your service, and that would work as long as you were like 90, like if you had the mindset around it, and you did it every day and you were consistent, you'd still build a business that way. So, and then the last, of course, like last not least, because we've been talking about it the whole time, but is your brand. So I'm bringing people onto the show in one of those 4 areas, people who help coaches and consultants do this thing and help them do it successfully. So I'm bringing people in each of those areas to come on the show. Right now I'm doing 2 shows a month.
Mhm.
There's a whole lot that needs to be done to make sure this show is really, like, outstanding for people, so, that's how much I bit off right now because I can't chew any more of that, than that right now. But so it's 2 shows a month. It's on Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern, which for you would probably be the end of your day, right?
I'm 6 hours ahead of you, so it's just
Okay, that's not so bad, right? So, yeah, so it's on Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern. My next one is going to be on February 20th, and it's with an expert on emotional release using the emotion code. So something that people don't may not know about. Super cool technique. She can do it virtually, which is crazy, but she can. So, yeah, so I think it'll be really fun for people, and that's going to be like kind of squarely in my self care pillar.
okay,
Yeah,
wonderful. If you have the link in the show notes, I think you also stream
love it.
live, right?
So yeah, the best part of this show is okay, coming into the Zoom room, that's where you get to actually have your questions answered, interact with my guests, with me, be a part of the community, network with each other, community, right? That's the thing, the reason. So that's the best place to be. That's why go to the link and register. But if you the people on the lives, like they can see what we're doing, but they just don't get to be in the Cool Kids Club. So Cool
Absolutely.
Kids Club, Zoom room, that's where we go.
Got it. All right. Melissa, there is one more thing I want to do with you, a rapid
Sure.
fire terms question answer session. Are you ready?
Oh, okay. I don't know. I didn't know it was gonna be like game show style, so I'll get ready. Here we are. I'm ready. Let's go.
Right. Story.
Story?
What comes up top of mind when you hear the term story?
Brand.
Okay. Visibility.
Photos.
Community.
Loving my people.
Women empowerment.
Women millionaires.
Huh? Yes. I say yes. What about you?
Mhm. Yes.
And brains.
Uniqueness.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Melissa. Where can people go other than to the show? Where do they find you?
Well, I think the show's the best place, but if you want to take a look at my work and see, like, as far as what I do on the photography side, we can drop a link in there as well for that. But otherwise, I think come to the show. It's going to be amazing, and you're going to meet so many amazing people. We're having a really good turnout, as a matter of fact.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you for being my guest on BrandsTalk on my show. It was really a
Thank
pleasure having you here talking about brands and photography and why we have to slow down in order to speed up. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Thank you for having me.